let's say that I have these three files in my project called drag resize, key listener, and mouse listener. They all, if you think about it, logically are related to UI, right? So these three modules are going to handle, listening for key presses, listening for, I don't know, touch events or mouse moves, and dragging to resize. So I structure gives you a way to actually logically group these three files, and we'll show you how. So, and what we're going to say is tell structure to declare a group, and here we're going to show actually a another little feature. So we're declaring a group, right? And so a group is going to have, because we're dealing in sort of logical separation of stuff, you kind of going to want some metadata about this group, right? So we have to give it a name. The name is required. Now, these all are dealing with UI, so we're going to just go ahead and call this group UI handling. Or that looks ugly. Let's just call it UI, okay? And just for good coding practice, we're going to go ahead and give a description. And we're going to say that this is designed to handle UI functions. Okay? So the idea behind this is, later on you may actually you may come back to this like way later and you don't really remember what this group is about. It's called UI. The idea behind giving a description is it's kind of self-documenting code. And there's other uses for it as well that I won't get into, but for now, it's good practice. You have to give it a name. And actually, if you weren't going to give it a description and you just were going to give it a name, then you really wouldn't have to use what I call that configuration object. You could just give this group a name, UI. Okay, but we're going to show good practice here. Okay, so I've got this group UI, but notice group UI doesn't have any components. Well, the way you do that is now you would think, okay, do I just declare group components? Well, how do I tell structure that this component, let's say modules key listener, how do I tell structure that this component is actually a part of group of UI? Well, as a designer of structureJS, I kind of rolled around a couple of things. I could have used a parameter that's like, okay, this belongs to UI, blah, 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 blah. But one thing that was really important to me in designing this was really using semantic syntax. I really wanted the syntax to have meaning. And so when you look at this manifest or you look at different parts of structure or modules, that it would be kind of, I thought, intuitive to understand what was going on. So the way I handled this was when you declare a group, what happens behind the scenes is that structure actually creates a UI, a namespace with the same name as the group. And now I can declare modules on that namespace. And so this is how I tell structure that this module is a component of UI. Now, I do say that order does not matter in dependency resolution. In the case of groups, order does matter. It's sort of a define or declare before use, right? Like structure would not, it needs to know that UI is a valid namespace. So you are going to have to make sure your group declarations are above your group components, okay? So we know that these are my components for UI, okay? Now, so you might be asking, what's the point of this? Why would I do this? Well, the idea is that let's suppose that this application was way larger, okay? And I had 10 different files that I'm using. Now, maybe say 5 of them are going to be using this UI functionality that these three modules, when put together, um, you know, uh, expose. Now, without grouping, how would I do that? I would have to say, okay, this module uses depends on all three of these, and I would have to copy and paste all three of these everywhere that I want to basically do UI stuff. Okay, and that's no bueno, right? That we don't want that. So what actually by declaring groups, and sort of one of the main purposes of groups is it's kind of it becomes a reference to a group of files. So now I can say that D depends on UI, but it turns out that UI is actually a collection of files or modules, right? Now the cool thing about this is my group can itself have a dependency chain. So let's say that, and this is true, the drag to resize is going to need to basically, it's going to need to make use of like listening for mouse events. So drag to resize whoops, depends on mouse listener. Okay, modules mouse listener. All right, and again, so this may not seem like a big deal, right? You may say, well, this is only 3 files. Couldn't I just have ordered this manually? Yeah, you could, because this application is really small and doesn't do anything. But imagine you're building Google Drive, right, which is primarily written in JavaScript. I mean, you don't want to be responsible for physically placing things above each other, right? And imagine if I had 10 different groups. So the automatic dependency resolution really saves you time. And so again, remember, UI is just a reference to these 3 files, but remember that structure is going to make sure that these 3 files, when inserted into this dependency chain, are actually in the correct order. So we're going to see this in action now. Okay, so let's go ahead and load this up. All right, and we can actually see, let's look at the files that it loaded up. We can see that structure did its thing. It made sure. Now if we look at let's take a look at the manifest while we look at this, right? So we said that okay, C needs to come before D, and also UI events need to come before D. So that leaves basically C to come last because it doesn't depend on anything. So you can see that. Oh wait, excuse me. That D comes last because all the other components have to come before it. Excuse me. So you can see that C comes first. Okay, and we can see now. Let's look at our group. Key listener. Even though the order I physically declared this in was key listener, mouse listener, drag resize, but because I made a dependency chain and I said, okay, drag resize needs mouse listener to come before it because drag resize is going to make use of some drag resize functionality. Notice that mouse listener has been ordered correctly before drag resize. So this is just demonstrating the ability to use groups to simplify your dependency chain, and also so when you look at this manifest, notice that in one glance I can really see all the components of my application and also how they fit together.